creating opportunities for us as young people to express ourselves, our voices and ideas, as well as provide input on addressing problems and finding solutions to issues that affect us as young people.
It is important to create an environment where their different needs are expressed without the fear of being invalidated or undermined.
Young people are not being judged, but held with their confidence to speak up for other aging of their views, and also being given a constructive feedback so that they can be able to conquer their fears.
Participatory process where young people's expertise and experiences are embraced throughout the program.
When we involve youth in policy-making decisions by the government, when we give them an unconditional positive regard, when we have a non-judgmental attitude, when we are genuine with them, when we give them safe space to talk.
We have to create dialogues and engage them, make them participate through your digital media platforms, your Twitter, your Facebook, your Instagram, and also as part of decision making, involve them, let them be part of those decisions, with policy making and any other decision.
The opinions and contributions of young people must be taken seriously as the contributions of specialists and experts.
Ensuring that young people remain at the center of the HIV prevention response, ensuring that they're capacitated well enough to be able to participate constructively into processes and policy building.
The young people are given a seat at the table when we are supported with the skills, the information, and all the necessary tools we need to contribute meaningfully to decisions that affect us.
Young people as key stakeholders in all the phases of a program life cycle, from designing the program to program implementation to program monitoring and evaluation.
Meaningful youth engagement cannot only be speaking to youth what really concerns them, but speaking to youth what concerns them in their own language.
There might become opportunities for all, regardless of cultural, religious, social backgrounds, gender, disability, and sexual orientation preference.
By serving as key advocates for sexual reproductive health services, building our peer group, accessing SRH services when they need them.
Involvement in decision making in all issues pertaining to adolescent girls and young women is meaningful involvement in the DREAMS program. Choice of safe-based meeting areas and decisions on clinical services to access youth-friendly safe spaces.
Not only where youth participate, but lead global movements around HIV, providing voices to the voiceless.
Power sharing is realized across all ages, and young people expertise and contribution in given equal ways, and robust youth civil society movement is supported and well resourced.
The intentional partnership between the youth, government, organizations, and other stakeholders. And this is where young people are involved in all parts of the programs, from the design to the agenda setting, to the decision making, to the implementation of these programs.
Make sure that their voices are held by implementing activities towards their ideas that they have explained during the decision making.
Meaningful youth participation is inclusive. It recognizes the intersectionalities that exist among young people and gives each young person a seat at the table as beneficiaries, as partners, and as leaders to ensure an HIV-free world.
And we are given a platform to provide our expertise and experiences in mosaic activities, and we are guided and channeled into the right direction to become experts in different work streams. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope I can be heard. I want to welcome you all to this webinar, looking at meaningful youth engagement, especially looking at the Kenyan youth. We have a very rich sessions that we're going to be hearing from different presenters, and basically just that you're welcome, feel free, but then we'll just have Questions at the end of the session, there will be a Q&A area. So, but that does not limit you. Kindly also just be, as the sessions are ongoing, please also add and ask questions on the chat and someone will be able to respond to you. So just a quick rundown, the specific objectives of the meeting is just to define what meaningful youth engagement would look like, to encourage our youth networks, just to provide practical examples, to enforce why we need to have meaningful youth engagement, to raise awareness, as well as just to look at how do we encourage and how do we share the sharing of experiences from the different youths that we have, so that then we do not take so much time. I would like to, as I'd indicated, we have quite a rich platform of different speakers, and I would like then just to invite Dr. Celestine Mugambi. She's the head of the Technical Support Division at the National Syndemic Disease Control Council, formerly known as NAC. And she's the technical lead for HIV prevention, adolescents and young people, engagement, public sector capacity building, the HIV response, and coordination of development and implementing partners. Dr. Celestine, karibu sana.
Thank you, Janet, and good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everybody, wherever you are. Thank you very much for joining this webinar. Let me start by sincerely thanking the SSLN, the NSCC team where we work, and the Maisha Youth for partnering with us in hosting this webinar. Just to showcase an example of meaningful youth engagement, or rather our definition of meaningful youth engagement. I think by way of opening and welcome, all the global strategies since around 2015, 2016 have talked about meaningful community participation and especially meaningful youth engagement. And I know for very many of our countries, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, this has been translated into national policies and guidelines on the same, where we have advocated for young people to be on the table as we're making decisions, to be part of policy, to be part of design and implementation of the same. But I really would like that as we have this webinar, we really ask ourselves, what does meaningful youth engagement mean? And what does it look like? Because for the longest time, it has been taken as tokenism. You have a meeting and you call 10 young people and you say, we have actually had meaningful youth engagement. I'm especially excited about this webinar because for us as a government agency, we're going to be showcasing our partnership with adolescents and young people. A lot of the examples we hear of meaningful youth engagement are between donors, implementing partners, and young people, but you hardly ever hear about engagements between governments and young people. And that is what we as the NSCC actually did from around 2016, 2017. It was a deliberate action on our end based on our epidemic that we were seeing of almost half of new infections coming from the age group 15 to 24. And really, when you talk about young people, they really have to be at the heart of the response. And I mean young people in all their diversities. So for us, it has been, let me call it a labor of love for me, because I'm very passionate about young people. We have built the meaningful youth engagement. We've built the Maisha Youth from scratch. And I think in a couple of minutes, we shall be showcasing how we have done that. I think for us as government, what we wanted to promote was mutual accountability, mutual partnership, but most important, have an opportunity for young people to showcase what they're doing and where government can be aware of the contribution of young people in the HIV response. A lot of the time it happens, but as governments, we don't have an eye on that because reports do not come to government. So this youth outreach that we have supported basically is within government, is supported and funded by government. And so we're happy to be showcasing that. I've had very nice things in the opening video about meaningful youth engagement, being intentional, making them experts in different work streams. And I think we have strived to do that, and we're going to be showcasing that for you. So this being a youth webinar, I'm not going to talk more than that. I'm going to let the young people talk for themselves. So let me welcome you all. And I think we can go to the next presenter, and we'll be happy to take your questions and your comments later on. Thank you. Back to you, Janet.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Celestine, and thank you for the welcoming remarks and just showcasing how the interlinkage comes in between government and the youths in the country. Our next speaker is Clarissa Wangui, who will then be taking us through the background and objectives of the webinar. Clarissa is the technical coordinator of the Maisha Youth Program at NSDCC. She provides leadership, mentorship, and guidance in design and implementation of the Maisha Youth Program at the national and subnational level. She is passionate about building capacity of young people in leadership for health and HIV. Her experience has enabled her to foster critical partnerships and networks to improve the well-being of young people. She advocates for use of data in decision-making and improvement of data systems to capture the contribution of young people in the HIV and SRH response. She has excellent communication skills and aspires to see very young voices heard in the right spaces. Karibu sana, Clarissa.
Thank you, Janet. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Clarissa Wangai, just as Janet has introduced. I'll be taking you through the first slide of the presentation, whereby we'll just need to understand what we mean by multi-sectoral coordination of the young people overall, not just at a community level until to the national level. So when we talk about multi-sectoral coordination, this is just whereby we have sectors, just not health, but non-health programs whereby we integrate everyone and every young person from an organizational level, where we have the schools, the teachers, and the facilities, just to ensure that they provide safe spaces for these young people to receive information and services. We also have the community level, where we have the teachers and we have the parents and the caregivers, just who play a great role in providing mentorship and also guidance for these young people. And also at a society level, we're talking about the policies and the guidelines that protect these young people and provide a human-centered, right-based approach for these young people. And also, as you can see, the coordination mechanisms, whereby we have the Community Multisectoral Technical Working Group. These are the TWGs. We also have the National MCGs for Adolescents and Young People. And also now overall, we're talking about the CAFS Coordination Committee, which is the Kenya AIDS Strategic Framework. Next slide, please. When we talk about leveraging on the peer-led response, this is basically just to ensure how young people are provided by meaningful or rather relevant information and skills when it comes to the peer educators that we have, the mentors that we have, and advocates, and also implementers. And the key roles of this peer-led response is basically to increase advocacy when it comes to resource, when it comes to policy prioritization, and also the impact of the young people inquiring and also uptake in these services for health. Another key role that peer-led response take is just ensuring that this information and the correct information is disseminated to the community level when it comes to HIV prevention and SRH. We also look at collaborating and also partnerships beyond just Maisha Youth, but also other youth networks and also various sectors. We also look at providing forums for these young people to participate and also their voice to be held when it comes to multi-sectoral coordinating of the HIV and also prevention implementation plan. And to the next slide, please. When you talk about Maisha Youth is a youth-led movement inspiring and empowering millions of young people across the board so that they can make informed decisions to the health benefits and also productive health. So when you talk about Maisha Youth, the inception of Maisha Youth, it began in 2017, whereby it focuses around HIV and AIDS, drug and substance abuse, mental health, and leadership and governance. Through the years till now, we were able to have many young people come on board, whereby we have every county, we have a representation of a youth person from Maisha Youth, and we target the age of 15 to 24. Our key roles as Maisha Youth basically is to provide or rather increase advocacy when it comes to policy prioritization again, and also uptake of service delivery for these young people and also the programs. We capacity build youth networks within the counties that we have in development of context and specific resources, and also allow and also enhance collaboration and partnerships for these young people and also the youth networks that we have here in Kenya. Next slide, please. Next slide. I will just mention a few achievements that we're able to achieve as Maisha Youth. And one of the key achievements is AYP. We were able to develop the AYP toolkit. We were able also to integrate participation to various festivals and festivals and national commemoration events, such as the International Condoms Day, the WAD, and also we had another one, If She Decides. And we can see when we do all this, we're able to target as many young people as possible, from around 3 million online and also more than 4,500 when it comes to the peer-to-peer led organizations. Another key role that Maisha Youth have been able to achieve is partnership with other organizations and other youth networks, ensuring that our voices are heard and also the level of HIV prevention among the young people is taken up seriously. And to the next slide. When you talk about the youthful, meaningful engagement of this webinar, just to share a few of the key objectives that we have is basically to understand or rather define what it means to have a youth engagement forum in Kenya, and also just to share our best practices, lessons, insights in terms of what meaningful youth engagement is, just not from a national perspective, but also from a global level. We also just to provide examples of how to access these levels of meaningful engagement using the approach of the scorecard, so that to ensure that our routinely when it comes to sexual health, productive, and also HIV, and just to create awareness of this International Youth Days, because we are all aware that this month we are celebrating the youth of Kenya, and I think it's global. And our key theme is to intergenerational solidarity, creating a world for all ages. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Clarissa, for that, for just giving us an overview. And just looking at how then Maisha Youth came to being, and how then this then being that we've been able to partner with SSLI and just to be able to bring other youths on board just to look at meaningful engagement. So we have Kevin Sila, who will be then just giving us a story and just sharing his perspective and his personal experience. Kevin Sila is a 25-year-old residing in Machakos County, Kenya. He expertly merges his roles in technology and youth advocacy as the information technology lead at Maisha Youth and the chairperson for the Machakos chapter. And armed with a BSc in mathematics and computer science, he brings strategic IT insights and problem-solving abilities to his professional engagements. In his leadership role, he is dedicated to empowering and promoting the youth of Machakos County, further showcasing commitment to community upliftment. Kevin's tech-savvy approach, coupled with his passion for youth advocacy, makes him a significant influencer in his community. Karibu sana, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon. I hope everyone can hear me. Yeah. So my name is Kevin Sila. I'm a Maisha Youth volunteer. I currently serve as the IT lead for the movement, as well as the chair for the Machakos County Maisha Youth chapter. As stated earlier, in the next 5 minutes, I want to share my personal story that highlights my journey as a Maisha Youth and the significance of considering individuals' perspectives in meaningful youth engagement. Yeah, so throughout my journey as a Maisha Youth, I've had the privilege of closely collaborating with young individuals at both the county and the national level, working alongside the county government and specifically the healthcare sector. We've embarked on various initiatives aimed at empowering young people, mostly through educational forums and capacity building sessions. One of the activities I've been involved in is the creation of policies and guidelines at Maisha Youth. As a member of the Maisha Youth Council, I've been actively involved in shaping the movement's policies and guidelines. Working alongside fellow volunteers, we've crafted comprehensive guidelines for membership, recruitment, and documentations that highlight the movement's core values, mission, and vision. These policies have been essential in aligning our priorities, assigning roles, and clarifying responsibilities within the movement. Personally, I also took part in the formulation of our digital media policies, such as the social media strategy, our social media style guide, as well as the digital media terms of reference document, all of which serve as a guiding framework for our subcommittee. These documents outline our objectives, our strategies, and our deadlines, ensuring a cohesive approach towards achieving our goals. As part of the council, I've also contributed to the development of movement work plans and budgets, providing essential guidance to county chapters throughout the country. In addition to policies, I've also been actively involved in community engagement forums. My engagement in these community initiatives span both national and county levels. At the county level, I'd say I have actively participated in various sessions within Machakos County. These sessions have been involving the youth, healthcare professionals specializing in HIV and TB, as well as public speakers from across the county. On a broader scale, I've taken on the role of amplifying youth voices by conveying their concerns to relevant stakeholders. The stakeholders are people such as healthcare providers and policy makers at the county level. On a national level, I've contributed to technical working groups in events like triple threat sessions in Machakos and Homa Bay, as well as in international events like the International Condoms Day that happened in Mount Kenya University earlier this year. Specifically, these events provided a broader platform for knowledge sharing and engagement with our youths. And to add to that, active involvement in advocacy has also been a cornerstone of my journey at both county and national level. We've been able to collaboratively make significant strides in raising awareness about sexual health practices throughout the country. County forums, guided by our regional HIV coordinator and healthcare experts, have served as crucial spaces to educate youth on healthcare issues, including up-to-date statistics related to HIV and syndemic diseases like TB. Our digital media committee has also harnessed the power of platforms like social media to disseminate information. Personally, I've contributed in content creation, content design, as well as social media management, ensuring that essential knowledge reaches our fellow youth. Through these efforts, we've tapped into the potential of technology to bridge distances and reach diverse audiences. I'd say that this has helped us amplify the voices of young individuals and showcase our advocacy work nationwide. In addition to advocacy, I've also been part of mentorship programs. I'd say that mentorship has been a driving force in my journey, which has allowed me to share insights and guidance on essential topics. Through one-on-one sessions, as well as focused group discussions, I've addressed critical subjects like sexual health, mental well-being, and financial literacy. Most recently, I've facilitated focused group discussions with youth from various counties, including Turkana, Kisii, Busia, and Bungoma. These sessions provided a platform to exchange knowledge about sexual and reproductive health, share personal experiences, and brainstorm on support systems that nurture a holistic development for our youth. Reflecting on my experiences, I've witnessed personal growth in my public speaking, analytical, and communication skills. My interactions with my fellow youth have consistently highlighted their immense potential across the country. And in as much as these youth face various challenges, the majority of the young individuals are actually striving to improve their lives and contribute positively to their community. I'd say that it was also through these experiences that I realized the impact of HIV programming and the power of meaningful youth engagement. Today, I speak with deep gratitude for the experiences and opportunities that have shaped me into the advocate and mentor I am today. Specifically, I'd like to emphasize the importance of listening to and understanding the perspectives of young people as they are our future. Each voice carries a story and a narrative that deserves to be heard and valued. In my opinion, I believe that meaningful youth engagement is a fundamental pillar of progress to youths in our country. By actively involving these young people in decision making, in policy formulation, and even in program design, we unlock the tremendous potential within our population. Thank you so much for your time, and let's us all embark on this webinar with a shared commitment to meaningful youth engagement.
Sorry. I want to thank you, Kevin, for taking time just to share your perspective and what how this has been able to help you. And now we actually are going now into the nitty-gritty of why we are here. Meaningful youth engagement. What does it mean? And our next speaker is just going to now give us and set the scene for us in terms of that. We have Nadu Adik. Nadu is a public health practitioner with 6 years experience, specializes in project management, gender and social inclusion, youth programs, and sexual and reproductive health. Passionate about empowering marginalized groups, she serves as a project officer and gender focal person at the Planned Parenthood Association of Ghana. Her work has impacted over 1 million adolescents across 16 regions in Ghana and includes coordinating a consortium advocating for disability and human rights. Aspiring to influence global health through innovative leadership, Nadu continues to make a significant difference in her community. Karibu sana. Welcome, Nadu, as you now take us through the next session.
Okay, thank you, Janet. I must also add that I am an AGYW champion for the SSL, and the tag I wear proudly. And so I'll just be taking us to one insight to have a deeper understanding of meaningful youth engagement and my experiences and plus experience of my organization. Next slide, please. The next slide, okay. So to understand meaningful youth engagement, I define it as engaging young people at all levels, right from when you are formulating your organizational policies in your governance structure in terms of research, budgeting, M&E, design of programs, and any other essential key areas of work, but most importantly on programs that are critical in the fact that they directly affect or benefit young people. Next slide, please. All right, so what would be the correlation between MYE and HIV? I think it's no brainer that globally, young people, especially between the ages of 15 to 24, constitute a large quota of the world's population, especially for sub-Saharan Africa, where most of us have the pyramid age structure. We find a lot of young people in that world, meaning that if we want to harness demographic dividend that increase productivity, young people and especially their well-being should be of significance. And when it comes to young people, they are heterogeneous or a diverse group that face a lot of challenges, specifically in assessing HIV and sexual reproductive health rights and services. In 2017 alone, we had about 3.9 billion of young people living with HIV. And out of this number, every 10 minutes, a young person is dying. If this is the data for 2017, I'm sure definitely it might have gone up. And we are doing a lot to end HIV by 2030 anyways. I think this is just to give us a picture that in our quest to attain our vision of ending it by 2030, if we do not engage young people fully and put them in lead position to push the agenda, will be very challenging, and also to emphasize that young people are the most effective engine for social change. In the subsequent slides, I will elaborate why it is so. Next slide, please. All right, so one may ask, why does HIV prevention response need meaningful youth engagement? Now, there's a lot of evidence and research backing that when young people are meaningfully engaged in development and implementation of policies, programs that affect their health, and interventions become more tailored to their needs, and their health outcomes would improve. Just to cite an example, if you want to, there's a strategy that my organization has adopted. We call it Know Your Nurse, Know Your Clients, where we have these young people take a field visit to the health facility. They get to interact with the health service provider, build that bond, and we have reports that it has increased health-seeking behavior and the likes. And also, meaningful youth engagement is a critical enabler of increased uptake of HIV testing and adherence to treatment, likewise the use of HIV prevention services. If you understand young people or adolescents in their social development, they are inclined to their peers and all that. So seeing like-minded peers of them leading charge and advocating for HIV testing, it automatically builds their momentum for them to do other. So like tell a friend to tell another friend a scenario here. Next slide, please. Okay, so I adopted this session, the three-lens approach from UN8 reports on youth and HIV, and it tells you that in engaging young people, you have to look at it from a three-way or a lens. One is looking at young people as beneficiaries. When in looking at them as beneficiaries, there are some key areas that you want to pay attention to. One is knowledge, because there are young people out there that are not even aware of the intensity of the HIV pandemic. Why are we doing all these things? This is where comprehensive sexuality education comes to bear. Curriculizing all the essential topics and health packages that young people need to know, so that they are aware and they are informed. And once they are informed, it translates to making informed choices. And this will be a key thing under our prevention strategies. We also want to look at a bit about the treatment in terms of designing programs for them. We want to design programs on treatment intervention that will ensure early linkage to care. Because once they are linked to care early, they are better to adhere and also overall improve the health outcomes or quality of life of young people living with HIV. And also, when working with young people as beneficiaries, we want to address the issues of stigma and discrimination, which is why a lot of young people living with HIV are not putting themselves out there, and they are being cast out because a lot of unwritten, unfair stereotypes surrounding their health conditions. Then, when engaging young people as partners, first of all, you want to understand that inclusion and participation is a human rights principle. And so in the world of young people, nothing about us without us. So you want to engage young people as partners, and also take from their ideas, make them have fair representation in decision making as well, not only at the grassroots level, at the governance body. So where Global Fund of Praise in the country, the CCM, you want to have young people there to tap from their experiences and for them to speak to their needs and better collaborate with them. And then the last one, which is the most important for me, is engaging young people as leaders, and it goes a long way to benefit. Like if you want to work with young people as a programmer, as a donor, you need to know that you need to build young people's capacity, empower them, empowering them in the spheres of programming, in M&E, also in service delivery, and mostly advocacy. there's been an assumption that, oh, young people are not fit to manage funds. So why don't you commit to give them skills in resource mobilization and fund management, so that you can trust them enough that they understand your accountability system, able to implement projects instead of only being, yes, I've invited you, come and participate, or I'm giving you treatment. You have built the capacity to have confidence to them to be able to execute programs and interventions that will yield better results outcome. So this is generally an overview of adopting a three-lens approach to youth participation. Next slide, please. Okay, so I just want to share my personal experience. I have been a testament of meaningful youth participation right from the grassroots level. I started my career as a volunteer, and I have risen through the process, and I got opportunity in May to represent young people at the Global AIDS Prevention Coalition high-level dialogue on accelerating HIV prevention and preparedness for future pandemics. I want to use this opportunity to thank SSLN for that opportunity. And in that space, I got to be in the same room with global leaders, donors, and speak from as a point of being a CSO on why prevention cannot wait, because there are a lot of underlying issues that affect HIV prevention. And I shared a story. If you go on UNA's website, there's a feature story that was posted with a story I shared about a young girl contracting HIV from a 40-year-old man because she didn't have funds to pay for her education to pass the exam. So the bit of transactional sales because of lack of social amenities. So for me, it was a surreal moment that having gone through all the levels, being at this global level to know that, okay, we young people want to work with you. And I made emphasis about leadership. That's why I said in the three-lens approach, I'm very enthused about building young people's capacity as leaders. It is that opportunity I got that got me to be in that space to speak and to encourage that more young people, especially women and girls, are put in education positions to speak and address issues that advance HIV prevention. Next slide, please. Okay, so I just wanted to share a bit about my organization, what we do. So PPAG is a member association for IPPF, that's International Planned Parenthood Federation. And when it comes to Ghana, we are the leading NGO in terms of sexual and reproductive health. And we have a youth wing called Youth Action Movement. Youth Action Movement, I started as a volunteer, rose through the ranks to be a branch treasurer, and automatically got mentored by one of the staff who saw my capacity and also became a staff and that. So when you engage young people or provide enabling environment for them, it does build their capacity. And it's the vision of PPAG to engage young people and vulnerable adults to improve SRHR information. Next slide, please. Okay, so before I end, I just want to share on an assessment tool we have developed at PPAG. It's called With Us Tool. It's basically a tool we have developed for any organization to use to assess how they are engaging young people, if it's up to standard and whatnot. Next slide, please. So just a quick one, the meaningful youth assessment has 4 measures of assessment, one at the organizational level, program level, youth level, and the community level. So under each of these themes, it will ask questions pertaining to how you are involving young people in policy making, youth development, your staffing, are you ensuring that it's inclusive and youth friendly in terms of programming and capacity? whether you are putting measures in place to ensure young people's capacity are built. Same for the youth level. So there are just series of answers, and once you're able to complete it, the tool will be able to indicate where you need to put in more strength and even give you suggested things you can do to up your score in that domain. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yes, so this was also to share how, because of our work as PPAG in youth programming, we have been recognized to be the center of excellence. So we offer capacity building to other member associations in the African region when it comes to youth programming. Next slide, please. All right, so I'm just sharing quick insights that young people voices need to be heard without judgment, stigma, or discrimination. And we need to provide, young people need to provide input at all stages in terms of decision-making, implementation, and whatnot, like I've said earlier. And also in dealing with young people, we need to be intentional about ensuring intersectionality, means marginalized and leaving no one behind. And also we can ensure robust youth civil society movements in place, which are supported and well-resourced to complement efforts, and also ensure diversity to achieve equity. Next slide, please. Last slide. Okay, so this is the last slide, just to share some lessons that we have learned. That systematic approach involves young people at all levels. We have to shift from the thinking of working for to working with, and we need to ensure institutional commitment to youth leadership, and also build the capacity of young people consistently to ensure that they are meaningfully engaged and they contribute meaningfully also. I think I'm done here. The last slide. All right, so this is it. This is just a thing for me that young people can change the world if we let them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nadu. Thank you for sharing the experience from Ghana and how you're able to meaningfully engage the young people. So then next to then be able to go to the next speaker. And the next speaker is just going to give us an overview of how are you able to know if you're meaningfully engaging the youth. I think this is something that is very critical and very key for us. And our next speaker is Kaushal Ramsinghe. I hope I pronounced that very well. A human rights activist and law advocate. Kaushal completed his graduate studies in law from Buckinghamshire University, United Kingdom, and successfully completed postgraduates of gender and health studies from University of Colombo, Sri Lanka. His area is gender equality, SRH, and HIV-related human rights. Kaushal is a proud LGBT activist and PLHIV person. In his activism, he got an opportunity to lead the committee of a private parliament member bill for banned conversion therapies in Sri Lanka. He's founder of Youth for Tomorrow's Sri Lanka Youth Rights Movement. Kaushal currently lives in France, and he's now engaging in the European LGBT movement. Welcome, Kaushal.
Hi, everyone. I think we have same timeline, so I will say good day to you, everyone. So today I'm going to talk about the Uproot Scorecard project, especially how to connect a youth in meaningful way. That is my topic. So we can go through the slide. Okay, before start, I like to do little icebreaker because we heard two speeches for the moment. So you can just type on your chat. So first I will show you one of picture. Then you have to guess and send your answer. You have 30 seconds for that. Okay, next slide, please. What do you think? What is this? Is this something or what cloth or what do you think? You can just type and send me the answer. House roofing, thank you very much, Joseph. Houses, okay. Any more answers? Roof, factory, okay. We got a lot of answers, same answers, roof, a cloth. Okay, let's see what is that. Thank you very much for the answers. Next slide, please. Okay, this is a condom packet. You can see the stripe over there. So when it's zoomed, we thought it's a roof or cloth, but it's really condom packet. Next slide, please. Okay. Now, thank you for engaging with a little icebreaker. So let's talk about the Uproot Scorecard project. Before start talk about the Uproot Scorecard project, I would like to go little video, then we can start talking. Okay, you can play the video.
I am Kaushal Ranasinghe, co-lead of the PACT advocacy team. The next project jointly conducted by global youth-led organizations, the PACT, Y Plus Global and Youth Lead is the Uproot Scorecard project, and it is powered by UNAIDS. This project is targeting 8 countries in different geographical areas, and through this project, we are ready to look at factors such as the participation of the youth community in those countries and the ability to access services which related on HIV and sexual reproductive health and rights. We are carrying out this project with 3 main objectives in a period where governments and policy-making institutions are making political situations that are violating human rights, especially against the LGBTQ community, young girls, key affected populations, and people living with HIV. Those objectives are implementing new country scorecards, Cameroon, Panama, and Pakistan in collaboration with youth groups. And second one is particularly those living with HIV and key population re-evaluate the previous scorecard in Namibia. And third objective is co-develop and implement in-depth advocacy initiatives to strengthen countries' accountability to HIV and AIDS response in Indonesia, Kyrgyzstan, Nigeria, and Vietnam. As a human rights activist and young social activist, I believe that this Uproot Scorecard project will be very successful.
So before talking about the Uproot Scorecard project, we talk about the objectives of the scorecard project. We can go next slide. Okay, so why we need this project? First one, we identify some issues, problems overall over in the global movement, especially when we're talking about the AIDS, end AIDS by 2030. When we go to that goal, we find out there's a lot of problems, loopholes around the this goal, especially inequality, violence, discrimination, and we need to find out what is the root cause of this problem. So there is a problem. That's why we start this project, and this project is not short-term one. It is a long-term one, because for the moment we know when we working through the for end AIDS or end HIV, what happened? We have to find out there is a lot of short-term project, as well as there is a lot of staff not sustainable. But we need some opportunity to implement long-term project. So that's why we are trying to implement this Uproot Scorecard project, and it starts from 2015. So it's related to UPR process. I think all of you know about the UPR process. UPR process is connected to United Nations, and for the human rights movement. So there's a little homework for you. Just find out what is UPR process, then you can get more idea about the Uproot project. Next slide, please. So we find out there's a lot of problem, loopholes. So we need to find, then we plan some methods. So you can see Uproot is a global youth-led political agenda based on the principles of equality, inclusion, and solidarity. Especially these three qualities, equity, inclusion, and solidarity is very important when we're talking about the human rights movement, when we're talking about the HIV movement, when we're talking about the AIDS movement. So Uproot agenda always campaigning, running, that is developed power by the young people to tackle the root cause that put young people at risk, including discrimination, inequality, violence, and exclusion. Next slide, please. So through the Uproot Scorecard project, you can see there's a lot of countries till 2022. We implement this Uproot Scorecard project, these countries. So we find out a lot of root causes, as well as we find out a lot of suggestions from youth community, as well as we make an opportunity to youth community in those countries through the Uproot Scorecard project. Especially, I will give you one example from Sri Lanka because I'm from Sri Lanka. So when I work in Sri Lanka, I realized there is no participation, especially youth participation. There's a participation, but only for youth for ticking purpose. That is one of big issue we face, big problem we face when we working on the HIV movement. So we have to find out how we can open youth community in meaningful way. So through the Uproot Scorecard project, when we do an Uproot rollout, we gave opportunity to youth. How do you think about the participation? So they gave score to the participation. Then we suggest to the government as well as community-based organization, other organizations. Okay, this is you think about your participation, but it should be changed like this. So we gave that suggestion, and through that suggestion, we find out good place for youth community. So that is one of good example and good story from the Uproot rollout. Next slide, please. So there's a three piece. First one is a participation. I already talked about the participation, as well as when we're talking about the policy, sometimes youth community is not there. Sometimes people make policies not for the youth community. They make only for wider community, but not focusing youth. So that is one of big problem youth face, as well as partnership. So partnership, when we're talking about the partnership, sometimes we can see government officials and CSOs not in the same level. They are in a different state and they are not accepting each other. So that is one of big issues when we're working on the HIV related human rights or HIV related projects. So we have to always think about participation, policy, and partnership. Next slide, please. So I already talked about the participation. Participation is empowering. Next slide. I think we can go fast because the time flies. Policy, I already talked about the policies, but policy is politics, especially when we have to understand when we're doing policy implementing, sometimes it's just only the parliament, but in the real world, there is no policies. Especially when we're talking about the LGBTIQ community, especially when we're talking about the HIV related issues, there's a lot of policies, but when it comes to the implementation level, there's a big issues. Next slide. Partnership. So we have to always focus on partnership. We have to always make a bridge through the youth community as well as government officials, community-based organizations, because it's very important when we're talking about the HIV movement. And because it's about community, it's about key affected population, it's about people. So partnership is very important. Next slide. So we find out through the Uproot Scorecard project, we find out there's a policy gap, partnership gap, as well as participation. And sometimes when we're talking about the beneficiaries, there's no real beneficiaries. So we have to find out who is the real beneficiaries. We have to focus on them, as well as we have to build upcoming leaders and empower leaders. When we're talking about the community leaders, there's a little gap. That gap is they are not sometimes empowered. So when they go to the in front of the government officials, they are silent. So we have to always make young leaders, youth leaders for future. Next slide. So you can see there's photos from countries which Uproot Scorecard project implement. Next slide. So as well as through the rollout, we gave opportunity to young people to identify these areas, laws and policies, participation, partnership, beneficiaries, and leaders. So you can see in the Madagascar, Nigeria, Indonesia, how they score these areas. So I will give one example and go to the next slide. From the beneficiaries in Indonesia, they gave low point. So we have to always think about these kind of areas. And what do we plan to do? Especially when we going to implement this Uproot Scorecard project, we have to find out these areas and especially focus on sexual reproductive health and rights. And as well as we have to be very sensitive age, gender, and inclusion. Next slide. So this year we implement in more countries. You can see that in that map. Next slide. So this is what we do in this year in Nigeria, Kyrgyzstan, Panama, India, Indonesia, Vietnam, Namibia, and Cameroon. So you can find out more details about the Uproot Scorecard project through the PACT website. Very inclusive, very in detail. You can find out that. And yes, this year we are doing these activities. Especially, we are going to link with a universal periodical review. You can do a little homework after the webinar. What is the UPR process? So through the UPR process, we are going to suggest to the government about what we find out and recommendations. Next slide. Yes, we are fine. We are always focused about our beneficiaries, youth-led organization, young activists, young people living with HIV, as well as YKPs and youth with disabilities and special needs. And we are focusing about other peoples, especially little communities in this when we implement in this project. Next slide. So outcome. There's a lot of outcomes. Anyway, we always focus about the recommendation which given by youth community, and we always respect youth, meaningful youth community, youth participation. So therefore, we have to identify how we can give that finding to the government, how we make recommendation to the governments and CSOs. So we always focus on that outcomes. Next slide. So you can find out about Uproot Scorecard project more through the PACT website, and you can find out the findings from last year also. So I had a very big battle with time. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Over to you. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kaushal, for sharing the work that you do and in terms of when the advocacy you bring about. Just before we go to the next presenter, I just want to let members present that Nadu is going to be leaving a bit early. So if you have any questions for her, kindly just put in the chat box so that then she can be able to respond to them. So our next presenter is going to share on how do you know Also, if you're engaging the youth meaningfully with a case study from Zimbabwe. The presenter is Sibongingosi Mshapaidze. I hope I've said it correctly. I'm sorry if I've said it wrongly. Is a devout development practitioner, passionate about peace and youth development. She is the current Secretariat for Young People's, for Young People and Network on Sexual Reproductive Health, HIV and AIDS, where she has made it her mandate to advocate for meaningful youth engagement in all spheres. She's an AGYW champion for the South to South Learning Network, and she also works with young people with disabilities in Zimbabwe to increase their access to SRH information, and is a seasoned CSC facilitator. Welcome, Sibongingosi.
Thank you, Janet. Right. Slide. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm from the Young People's Network on Sexual Reproductive Health, HIV and AIDS in Zimbabwe. And this is a network for adolescents and young people that are between the ages of 10 to 24. The network was convened in 2007 by the National AIDS Council with the support of the Ministry of Health and Childcare, UN agencies, and other development partners. So our vision is to see young people in their diversity fully access their sexual and reproductive health rights with no impediments. And our general purpose is to be the coordinated voice of young people in the multi-sectoral response to SRH, HIV, and AIDS. And we are present in all the 10 provinces that are in Zimbabwe, in all the 86 districts that are supported by the National AIDS Council. And we have 17 different sector reps that all serve a term of 2 years, taking up SRH and HIV issues of young people in their sectors, leading advocacy in their different spaces, and contributing to the national advocacy and providing feedback to young people in their constituencies. Next slide. So the structure of the Young People's Network actually starts from the community, where we have young people joining in from different youth-led organizations, youth-led CSOs, or youth-focused organizations. Thereafter, they feed into the district Young People's Network, in which they are able to represent and speak about issues affecting young people within their districts at district AIDS action committees, with stakeholders working with young people within the community, with task forces and health committees. Thereafter, we have them, the channel goes up to the provincial level, where we have young people meeting within the different provinces, and they raise their issues at the provincial AIDS action committees, stakeholders, and the provincial adolescent sexual reproductive health forum. Thereafter, we move to the National Young People's Network, where we all meet quarterly as young people, and we are also present in the National Technical Working Group, in the National ASH Forum, in different boards, in partnership forums, PEPFAR youth reps, and CLM steering committees. And from there, we feed on our best practices and other things that we may be struggling with to the regional and international networks, where we also represent young people from Zimbabwe, such as the AFRIAN Safeguarding Young People program by UNFPA and the South to South Learning Network. Next slide, please. So we developed what we call the Meaningful Youth Engagement tool, which measures where different organizations feel they are in terms of measuring meaningful youth engagement, and as well as how young people feel that they are faring in terms of engagement. So about the tool, we look at the youth level, how young people feel that they are being engaged. We have the activity log review tool, which is used to measure the participation of young people in any key program, events, and or meetings that have an effect on them. At an organizational level, the Meaningful Youth Engagement Evaluation tool is meant to measure how effective organizations are committing themselves to promote youth engagement. Because at times organizations may feel that they are engaging young people, but it may not necessarily be meaningful. And the tool is administered through data collections by young people themselves at the youth level, since we'll be measuring youth participation from youth perspectives only. And at organizational level, the tool can be administered by the organization itself to measure where they are, or it can be administered by the young people in pursuit to evaluate if the so-called organization promoting youth participation is doing so or not. So how frequently can this meaningful youth engagement tool be administered? It can be given, for young people, it can be given after every activity to evaluate how they feel they were engaged. And at organizational level, it's administered annually so as to give the organization time to implement recommendations as well as data analysis. So where does the data come from for us to tell whether there is meaningful youth engagement? At youth level, we look at the attendance registers, were the young people, what was the agenda like? Was the agenda set by young people? Was it set with young people in mind, or were young people an afterthought? We look at the minutes, were issues that young people raised, were they minuted or they were sidelined? And we also look at the activity report. At organizational level, we look at the organizational strategic documents and policies, the financial budgets, and the board minutes. Next slide, please. So at youth level, the measuring statement, how we can tell if there has been a meaningful youth engagement. The question that we will look at is, are youth being actively engaged in policy or in programs? And the indicator will look at the number of the proportion of young people that were participating. If it was policy or program design, the implementation or monitoring, how many young people were there? This is where we are now looking at the attendance registers. We are now looking at the agenda. And are youth being engaged in governing or decision-making bodies? So we're looking at the number or proportion of youth participating within bodies. For example, in Zimbabwe, we have the National AIDS Council. So we're looking at, is there a young person in this board? In the CCAM board, are there young people that they're also making decisions? Are they part of it, and how many are they? So that we can say that there is meaningful youth engagement. And we look at youth voices are shared and valued. Are the number of youths who state that their voices are shared, are their voices also valued? How we can tell if young people's voices are being valued is when we go through the minutes after a meeting. With the points that they raise, were they minuted? And when we have the following meeting with the issues that they raised actioned, or it was all just talk. And we also look at, do young people have opportunities to make community contributions? This is looking at number of young people that are invited to contribute. This is at local and national youth serving organizations or institutions. Next slide, please. At organizational level, how can we measure if we are meaningfully engaging young people? So the organization so the measuring statement would be, does the organization have youth participation policies in place? And the indicators that you will look at are, does the organization have a youth participation policy that has been developed? Is the youth participation policy being implemented? And is there a non-discrimination policy developed? And the youth policy, was it developed in collaboration with the youth? An example is the Y+ Global. I think one of their policies is that all their members have to be below the age of 30. So you find that once a person is over the age of 30, they have to leave. So that's a youth participation policy that's in place, and we are ensuring that it's being implemented. And the organization spends a certain % of its budget on youth participation. If we're saying that we are a youth serving organization or we are a youth focused organization, what percentage of our budget is going towards programs, organizations, or facilitation or capacity building of young people? And another measuring statement is a diverse group of youth representing all affected populations is included, and the most vulnerable and marginalized youth populations is engaged. Young people, we always say this, they are not a homogeneous group. So do you have different young people being present, and do you have a youth advisory board that has been established? And we're also looking at the level of diversity. And the last measuring statement is, does the organization provide services that are tailored to meet the needs of youth? Here, we're looking at increased youth responsive characteristics of a program or an organization. So for this, when we say, are they tailored to meet the needs of young people in the rural areas can have different problems that they're facing. For them, it could be that services are inaccessible. But in urban areas, it could be that services are accessible, but services are accessible, but they are not affordable. So as an organization, how are you meeting the demands? What are the differentiated service delivery models that you have to meet the needs of young people? Next slide, please. So since 2007, the network has strengthened meaningful youth engagement in the national HIV response. So it's been a long time coming, and young people have been advocating for more space, more inclusivity, and most importantly, meaningful youth participation. And through our advocacy, Shandiri has created a youth advisory board and recruited 10 youth advocates. Plan International Zimbabwe established a youth advisory panel. ZNFPC, which is the Zimbabwe National Family Planning Council, established a youth action movement. SAYWAT recruited SRHR defenders, and most recently, HIVOS Zimbabwe also launched their own youth advisory panel. And I also understand that UN Women Zimbabwe has also set up their own youth advisory board. Next slide, please. So these are just a few codes that have come in from the people that have used and that we have administered the tool to, and they have used it. And Fadzai Mandishona from ZNFPC said, after implementing the recommendations from the Meaningful Youth Engagement Evaluation Initiative, there was increased ownership of the programs by young people. Indeed, anything for the youths without them is not for them. And Tendai Kurewatiwa from Planning International says, when it comes to achieving epidemic control, the Meaningful Youth Engagement Evaluation Initiative has helped us and improved the youth contribution towards epidemic control in the country. Next slide, please. So a few lessons that we've learned is that it is important to consider how to measure the level and value of youth participation. This measurement not only helps track the results of such engagement on youth and other program outcomes, but also helps ensure that the opportunities provided for participation are constructive and substantial. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, it is very important to measure meaningful youth engagement in our organization because it helps us to understand what is working, what is not working, what do we need to improve. It helps us to inform capacity strengthening, accountability to donors, and it also ensures that the opportunities provided for participation are constructive and substantial. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I think this has been very informative, especially then how do we measure meaningful youth engagement. And I'm sure now that we have gone through all that, we are now next on our next session, which is now discussion and question and answer. And this is a session that will be taken over by Carolee Siga and Gideon Obuya. Karoli hails from Taita Taveta and is a passionate youth advocate and community builder driven by her commitment to ensure meaningful engagement of young individuals at all levels. She serves as the National Secretary of the Maisha Youth Movement and brings her dedication to youth empowerment into her professional life. Her role involves driving strategic initiative, fostering connections, and advocating for the inclusion of young voices in significant decisions. Known for her determination and fervor, Karoli continues to have a lasting impact on her community and beyond, inspiring young individuals to take on active part in their societies. Gideon Obuya, on the other hand, he's a chairman of Nairobi County, and he's the chair and the lead Maisha Youth advocate, and he currently serves as the vice chair of the Maisha Youth Movement, and he's very passionate about young people and what it is that they can do for the young people. Karibu sana, Karoli and Gideon, as you take over the next session, looking at the question and answers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for good presentation that people presented. So therefore, now we are going to discussion about meaningful youth engagement, question and answer. My friend Karori Siga will help me to check at the chat box messages that you feel. How can we do more better in terms of meaningful engagement? So the floor is open. So I'm going to take, because of time, I'm going to take few questions and discussion. You're going to raise your hands up so that at least we can hear your voice, also what you feel about meaningful youth engagement. So the floor is open. If you have any question, you can raise up your hand. Discussion, compliment. Carol, you help me in terms of a chat box?
Yes. I'm on it, Gideon. Just a correction. Carol is a guy. Carol is not a her.
Yeah, sorry for that. Because when I was reading that, I was really confused.
Disturbed. It's okay.
Yes.
So,
the discussion is open now at the floor. How do you feel about meaningful engagement?
Gideon?
Yes. Victor?
Yes.
The floor is
Good
open.
morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. I hope you are hearing me nicely. Am I loud?
yes, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So I think the discussion has been very nice. First of all, let me introduce myself. Sorry for that. My name is Victor Rolo, Maisha Youth, Kericho County, professional about public health professional. And I really appreciate the discussion that we have had. I've learned a lot. And there's only one thing that I really wish that we could pick, especially as Maisha Youth in Kenya. And that is from the discussion or the revelation that we have gotten from Ghana. I don't want to mention the name. I can really mess up things. And that is on information. I think there's an issue in Kenya where we don't really, we have not really mastered how we disseminate our information. That's on youth, sexual reproductive health, and HIV to our youth in the communities. We need to come up with various and more initiatives, especially taking consideration the technology that we are having. The uptake of technology in Kenya is immense, and we need to take advantage of that and see how we can come up with initiatives that can build in and can bridge the gap on information. Thank you very much. Let me not take my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. I saw Youth of Hope You raised your hand and then now you have dropped.
Yes, thank you. So my name is Davis Bilimo. Here my is Kakamega. So I would like to thank all presenters who have presented. It has been a very good forum and a very good presentation. So my main concern is coming back to our country, the integration of services or what we call about MYE, meaningful youth involvement, because I've seen so much about the tool that our organizations are having. So we need to go back into grassroots and make sure that as an organization, because for sure I don't know if us as an organization we have that tool, or how can we track the way we've been trying to be engaged meaningfully. So that tracking aspect, I think it is something that as Maisha youth, we need to be elaborated on how have we been tracking our involvement. That is fine. Then another thing, the last thing is we need to put more focus, because from the previous presentation, it's been more about policies. Policies is equal to politics. That is the presentation that was made. So we need to put more focus on how can we influence or how can we be involved at 20 levels so that we can push more about policies to help us resource mobilize at our respective sub-counties or counties.
Thank you. I've seen Shem Chahira. Shem Chahira.
Yes, can you hear me, Obuya?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much for the participation and the discussion. I would agree with the facilitators. And my question is meaningful engagement and community engagement. And maybe my question will be about the political interferences. You said nothing for youths if it's not for the youth. So sometimes you get setbacks, and maybe from their feedback and maybe from their experience, how do they concur with political issues that they are used as a mileage for the politicians? They use the youths as just a stepping stone. So that will be my question to them. Coming back to Kenya is where you find mwanasiasa na kutumia ama ile program inaletwa at a times when there is campaigns, so that inafanywa that time. So how would you make that effective in our country? So thank you.
Thank you for that question. Karol Sira, from the message,
Yes, there's a question here. There's a question from Nicholas Otieno, who is asking, do we have YPL-HIV-led CBOs, and how can we maximize close partnerships with other HIV care and treatment implementing partners? These CBOs can create all relevant youthful engagement platforms for more to be done. Are they funded, and how? And how is the impact so far? That's a question from Nicholas. Do we have yeah.
Any other question?
There's another question next to that one. I'm Jacob from Maisha Youth Kwale. My question is, how best can we empower youths into matters policy influence? How best can we empower the youths into matters policy influence? I think this is policy making, in other words. Yeah, only those two for now.
Those two. If there's anything to add, any discussion. Shem, I've seen your hand. Come again. Go on.
Sorry, it's my hand. I forgot to put it down.
Oh, thank you. Charles Kamau, I've seen your hand.
So good evening, Gideon. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, you're audible.
So my question would be, bearing in mind the presentation I've listened to, it seems the youth engagement is majorly on health programming. So my question would be, do they have, that is Ghana and Sri Lanka, do they have youth engagement beyond health programming? That is, we have them in climate control? Do we have youth engagement in political affairs? Do you have, youth engagement in other fields, not only health programming? And if they do have, what are the strategies that they are used for them to develop the specific individuals, bearing in mind these are fields that are very competitive, and you must have a unique input for it to be selected. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Charles, for that question. Sila, there is any message, Carol Siga, there is any message in the chat box? Carol Siga?
Yeah, there's a question, Gideon. Somebody saying, I'm Kerry from Maisha Youth Kilifi. How can we strike a balance between giving youth a voice in decision-making and providing necessary guidance and mentorship? How can we strike a balance between giving youth a voice in decision-making and providing necessary guidance and mentorship? Another question. Will you handle the ones we've raised first, or we do the questioning first, then we'll answer them later? Gideon.
Me, I was thinking that at least we have some few questions, like we take around 2, and then we hand over to
Okay.
so that we can move on because of time also.
Another question. I'm Daniel Nyingi. For a better, meaningful youth engagement, how do we counter tokenism? This has been a barrier for meaningful youth engagement. How do we counter tokenism in the field of meaningful youth engagement?
Wow, good question.
Another question. Do we have CBOs within core communities that deal with matters of adolescents and young people living with HIV and AIDS, but they really need support? The CBOs that are there need support. This is what the question is saying. Another question, what role can youth play in policy-making process to ensure meaningful engagement? Yeah.
So,
another one, there are quite a number now.
So can we take 2 questions and then we hand over, so that because of time, time is running.
Another one, how can youth be empowered to take on leadership roles and drive positive change in their communities?
So the last question.
What barriers do you think prevent youth from participating in social and political activities? What are the barriers that prevent youth from participating in social and political activities? Yeah, those ones.
So thank you everyone for the good question, discussion. I'm going to hand over to Janet so that at least she can take over from there, so that at least you can, because of time, so that some questions can be answered. And then we go to the closing remarks. Thank you for everyone. Thank you for participating. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello. I've participated as an answer questions.
Apologies, I think I dropped off.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So I think maybe we could give Ghana and Zimbabwe maybe to go first. So one of the key questions I think we had was on how are they engaging other youths from other different sectors? Maybe they could go first. And then Dr. Celestine will come in and try to address some of the issues that have been raised, especially among the different policy involvement of the youths and all that. Thank you.
Okay, so I just want to quickly address the question so that I can go for the meeting. So in response, if we work with other youth in different sectors, so certainly every organization has their mandate area or their, we do a lot of we are in the special I understand that when it comes to engaging young people, it should have been married. So we do engage in collaboration. That's so where we don't have the capacity, we partner and we leverage on other organizations to do our programming. Because once our approach to meaningful to be comprehensive. So finance partner with groups that deal with climate change and always try to find a way how both are linked together to achieve the same outcome. That'll be my response for that. And I had a question about how to deal with political interference and all that. So I want to share a strategy that we use in organization. We call it leading from behind. So this came from in 2019, my contribution from Ghana, we faced opposition regarding CSC. And even right now, there's a bill parliament. We were at the forefront as CSOs, and the government, though we're working with them, when the heat came, they pulled away. So we had to strategize. So the leading from behind me, we are behind the supporting the government agencies to do the work. So a typical example is we want to ensure their guidelines for CSC competitions. What we do is that we are working with Ghana National Population Council. We are giving them the technical support, even funding for them to lead. So we are behind supporting them. And you know, government
Okay, thank you, Nadu, for that. I think I'm cognizant of the fact that we are running over time. So maybe the other questions would just be answered on the chat. As I quickly just welcome in Wendy, who is the country engagement lead for Kenya in the South to South Learning Network, and an AY SRH RH learning and social and behavioral change expert with over 12 years experience implementing and managing health programs in Kenya and coordinating learning agenda activities across East and Western Africa. As we just get the rest of the presenters, I mean, just to quickly just have, we are able just to quickly respond to some of the questions on the chat. Wendy, welcome.
Thank you very much. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning from wherever you're getting us from. So my role is very simple, to give the closing remarks and also to do the way forward. So I'll just take us through the key things that I have picked from the discussions from when we started, you know, Dr. Celestine just giving us a challenge into asking ourselves what really is meaningful youth engagement. And then of course we had a video that was just giving us experiences from different, from young people from different, across the board about the experiences on being engaged. And then of course we had experiences from Kenya and Ghana on, you know, just the young people giving us their insights, their views, and what they think, why they think it is important to engage young people. We got to know about the tools that people are using. And then, of course, the key thing for me was working with, as opposed to working for, young people. And then we had very good experience from scorecard approach. And then just a question for us, how do you know that you're engaging young people meaningfully? And of course, just looking at the different structures to engage young people. And, you know, I know all of us have picked different things, but this has been a very key discussion from all the young people, just to thank all of you. But all said and done, I think it would be pointless for us to finish this session without agreeing where we want to go from here. So
we'll go into the way forward. What do we want? What do we pledge to do from this particular discussion? What do we want to see happening from this particular discussion? And so we'll do that through the Mentimeter. Kamu, if you can just project that. Yeah, so if you can see just below the screen, there is you go to menti.com, or you can scan the QR code. So you will go to menti.com, and then the password is issued there. Kamu can help us to project the responses as they come in. So I'll just go through the different responses that will be coming in to get a feel of what all of us think should be our way forward. So yeah, just go to menti.com, then the password is issued there. Please give us our views. Where do you want us to go? What should be the way forward look like? Even as we come to the end of it. Yeah. Living with disability, keep them coming. Find out how to work with other youth networks who presented good. Let's keep those good points coming so that we know. Someone's saying, thank you for the wonderful engagement. I'd like us to continue on with partnerships to enable us engage the youth of the country, meaningful round table discussions with youths from different sub-counties, and chat through how best we can influence policies that affect young people, yeah. Make sure young people are involved at all structures and levels, and I think even that came in the discussion that we had earlier. We can read two more, then we go to the next session. Oops. Okay, read the slides and see how to apply it to my work. That is good, at least moving it forward. Develop structures that can enable meaningful engagement in our communities, strengthen and encourage more youths to advocate for and sensitize more peers, good, involving more people, capacity building for youth, use wealth structures that include young people. Wow, very, very good points. Capacity building for youth, again, coming out strongly, have the youth at the front line, especially in policy making platforms, just taking us to the point, you know, doing everything with the youth. So having them involved. Good, so keep them coming, even as we move to the very last session. Good, so Kamu, if you can take us to the last slide so that we wind up the session. Good, so we have given very good points on where we want to be, but this is our request to you. I know we have done very good, we have been involved in very good activities, you know, very rich activities that indicate that you know, that showcase the meaningful youth engagement. So moving forward, would like you to take a picture of yourself doing something good, something awesome on meaningful youth engagement, and then post it on your favorite social media platform. But we also like you to, you know, tag, depending on whatever platform you're using, whether it is Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. The platforms have been indicated there at SSLN, hashtag HIV, at South to South Learning Network, then on Facebook, South to South Learning Network group. You know, make sure you, even as you tag the various platforms, please ensure that you're using the hashtags that are indicated below. Hashtag meaningful youth engagement, hashtag youth day 2023, hashtag SSLN, so that we get to see what we are all doing. And then if you have additional questions, there's a website that has been provided there on my extreme right. Please use that website to just post any more questions. And then of course you will get feedback, but you can also use that by scanning the QR code. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your participation in this webinar. Back to you, Janet.
I think with that, then we'll just, maybe you've already done the closing remarks, is just to thank everyone for taking that time and having us have this and joining us in this session, and just to wish everyone a lovely evening, lovely day ahead.